Jackson Podcast.
What's poppin', with the family today on this beautiful, it's nighttime, it ain't daytime, but it was a video that I wanted to react to as of recently. It was a debate about reparations. I feel like the conversation about reparations has died down and people aren't conversing about it that much no more. But I wanted to get back into this conversation because I see two people from the opposite race talking about it. I wanted to include the call-in number. You can see it at the bottom of the screen, the 202-492-6844. I also wanted to have more conversation about the Nolan Wells, catastrophe that happened in Mississippi. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the video and, just wait for the family to tap in and, see if they agree or disagree. And we're just going to further the conversation. Let's get right to it.
You were never enslaved. I was never a slave owner. You don't deserve reparations.
And if you're a white man in America and you are suffering or you're poor, that is your misuse of your privilege.
Same if you're a black American.
How? That's impossible. If that's true...
See, this is why you're a victim. You think people are still holding you back, and you're
No,
free American.
Who are you to tell black people they don't deserve some of some shit they built?
What did you build?
My
What did you
ancestors
build?
built this country.
And
you
so
don't
did
understand
mine.
That? Each one of us got paid for
Are you
it.
special?
Your
Are
ancestors
you
got
autistic?
Paid. Your ancestors got paid, didn't they?
Well, then you're stupid.
No, you stupid for the you just said. A civil war between people that live in the same country.
Can you listen?
Can you say something with some substance?
Are you capable of listening?
I'm capable of listening.
So then just shut up for a second.
Guys, we got another debate today. We got Austin, Offscript, and Beau here today. We're going to be debating reparations. If either of you guys feel like the debate gets out of hand, just raise your hand. I'll step in, or you could say appeal to moderator. We're going to start off with a video, which is why we're debating here today. So play this video. Okay, so that was from a Jubilee 2-on-2 debate, right? You guys did a few months ago.
Yeah, it was from Jubilee's Roundtable. And that video, that particular clip, has 1.5 million views now on my Instagram.
Wow. Good. Yeah. And I'm sure other people reposted it too, so it probably got a lot more.
It's still getting comments as we're doing this debate right now as we speak. So, yeah, it's that clip was viral. But I mean, Beau, I'll give you the floor to open up.
No, I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
And just lay it out the best you can. Why do you think you deserve reparations?
Because the economic impact of slavery and Jim Crow still has a net negative impact that is demonstrably provable for black Americans in this country today. When you look at for example, and I have some notes that I've already written down here, federal policy discrimination going as far back as just as close to the 20th century, redlining via home ownership lines of credit, federal housing agency maps systematically denied black families access to mortgages, home ownership, wealth building through property. GI Bill benefits were disproportionately inaccessible to black veterans, and median white household wealth today is 6 to 10 times that of black households, and that varies by data set per year. But the home ownership gap remains large by 30 percentage points, and these are not random disparities. They track historically enforced exclusion. And the fact of the matter is that the black people in this country did essentially free labor for 246 years via slavery. That was then compounded by another 100+ years of racial discrimination codified purely on genetics. And black people contributed over $233 billion, again, as slaves to the United States economy that we were never recompensed for. And I couldn't call myself a conservative, a Republican, anything of the sort without...
You're not. But...
Well, you can say that, but tell me what a Republican is.
I would say a Republican is somebody that has conservative Christian values that would lean more towards self-regulation rather than government regulation, less taxes, less lobbyists, less government control. And when you're going for reparations, that's more taxes. But before we get off on that, I want to ask you a couple questions regarding your opening statement. When did redlining end? When did segregation end? That's been over 60, 70 years at this point, and you guys are still talking about it. So I'm just curious to know, with those things ended, and you actually never experienced them.
Right.
So I'd like to know why you deserve reparations. I understand why they might deserve reparations, but I want to know why you deserve reparations.
Well, let me define. Let me first set a baseline. When I define reparations, I am not talking about getting what Dr. William Darity said that black Americans would be entitled to, which is $250,000. I think that would create a situation where the U.S. couldn't pay that debt. It's impossible. However, you just said it yourself. Segregation ended about 60 years ago. Women in the United States had gained full autonomy in 1975. Martin Luther King was killed in 1968.
They got the opportunity to vote after black men.
Well, no, right. That's not my point. My point is that the average lifespan of a human being is around 70 to 80 years, give or take. So you just admitted that if the civil rights movement ended only 70 years ago, that means that some of the lasting generational impacts of Jim Crow, of slavery, can still be felt today, which is why my grandmother would deserve reparations. She's still alive. My father, I was born in 1965. I would argue that he and my mother deserve some form of reparations, and I would argue that the children of these people deserve them. Let's be very clear that during the founding of this nation, with the passage of the Homestead Acts, 200 million acres of land were given to white European peasant farmers. They were then enhanced by giving them county agents.
Say that again?
The Homestead Acts were passed shortly after slavery started in the United States. What they did was give away 240 million acres of land in the West and the Midwest.
They just gave them away?
Yes, in an effort to
You mean people had to go stake their land and fight for it?
No, I mean that the United States federal government created multiple programs to enable white European peasants to come over to the United States. They were given land grants, and on top of that, they were provided county agents to teach them how to farm. They were also then provided government subsidies to tell them not to farm any further. And the descendants of these people to this day are still receiving federal subsidies not to farm. And these were the same people that are telling Black Americans that we need to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps. Now, it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless person that we need to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps.
You still haven't explained why you deserve reparations.
Well, you didn't allow. Well, let me first explain what my reparations program would look like. It would look like.
I just want to know why you think you deserve reparations.
Because I'm the descendant of people that built this country that would never pay.
To the people that's watching the show, tell me how my microphone sound. Tell me how my microphone sound. I let them go on for a while with their soliloquy, though. But what caught my attention so far is that the guy, the Caucasian male on the end, he was talking about Republican values and how they prioritize Christianity and stuff like that. And to me, when I look at politicians and people that's in power, I feel like, they put on a front that they are religious individuals, but their actions doesn't show that they are living what they're representing. That's just how I feel about that. But let them continue on with the conversation and quit interrupting for a moment.
So am I. And I'm not sitting here claiming for reparations.
Wait. How are you? Who
I'm a descendant of people who built this country too.
Yeah, and y'all got paid
I just
for
think
it.
you're being a little bit of a victim, and you're victimizing other people by claiming that you deserve something that you were never a victim of.
So let me ask you this question. Can you refute anything that I said from a legal perspective?
It's not about refuting it. It's about whether you deserve it.
Are you a Christian, Beau?
Yes.
Okay. So is it written? So since we're Christians, this is interesting. So is it not written that you should do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
Yes.
So
you think stealing from people and giving it to yourself is what you would do unto others?
No, I think
because
that white Americans stole free labor from black. Did white Americans steal free labor black folks?
No, they bought it. They bought it from other African Americans that sold it to us. So
no, it wasn't other
Africans
right.
that sold it to us.
Starting something new isn't just hard, it's terrifying. When I started this podcast, I wasn't even sure what I was doing. What if no one listens? What if I make a fool out of myself? What if no one buys my product? Now I know that I was right in believing in my.
Who would have known that they got commercials within the podcast now? When people get Amazon Premium, YouTube Premium, you feel like ain't no commercials going to be involved in the shows or whatever. But now people are putting commercials within the show. That's just interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more of this debate. And the people that's tapped into the show, please tell me how my microphone sound, please, in the comment section. I would appreciate that.
Is the best converting checkout on the planet. It helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/DSH. Go to shopify.com/DSH. That's shopify.com/DSH.
And so Africans,
on what basis?
Just remember this: Africans through battles and everything else, captured other Africans and then sold them to the U.S. They were purchased,
Right.
not just stolen.
Right. I don't disagree with that.
Okay, and
But
then they were brought over to
there's
the
a
U.S.
key distinction.
Can I just finish?
Go ahead.
Man? I'll let you talk for a while.
Go ahead.
They were brought to the U.S. They didn't know any languages. They didn't know anything other than they were tools. And I do agree with you, and I think it was horrible that they did that. But it doesn't mean that they're 8 generations later, you deserve reparations because of what your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather went through. And I would even go back to the biblical theories or the Bible, just the Bible. Let's go back to the Bible. Deuteronomy, Jeremiah, Exodus, Ezekiel all claim that in similar form, the son shall not bear the guilt of the father, nor the father bear the guilt of the son.
Right. That's not talking about government institutions. So when
we're not talking about government institutions.
Yeah, we
we're talking about
absolutely
Christianity.
No, we absolutely are talking about government institutions. My entire argument is based around the premise.
You
Hold
brought
on.
up Christianity.
Right.
So
right.
let's stick with the Bible real quick.
No. This country was founded supposedly on biblical principles. Now,
Okay,
my question is, the government of the United States of America, the Chief Justice Tanner stated that a black man has no rights that he is a white man is bound to respect. That was one of the worst rulings in the Supreme Court history of this country.
I agree with
that. Then codify, and the difference, let me go back to what you said. You said that Africans sold other conquered Africans into slaves. There's a key distinction. They sold slaves that were conquered in war. They did not create a caste-based system based on a genetic factor of skin color. That's a key distinction that I'm not going to let you avoid that in this debate. So can you acknowledge that the Africans that sold conquered slaves were doing so under a different system, however wrong it may be? There is a key difference between selling someone into slavery and then codifying, which is what white Americans did. They created a caste system based around a non-self-determinable genetic factor. That is what happened. The United States government then legally codified this shit to keep black people as tools to be used. This is why the civil rights movement was so successful, because all we were asking the United States to do was to treat us as what the white man was, which was human beings. Is that not what happened?
And guess what happened? We decided that you should be treated as human beings. In fact, bloodshed happened all over the country. One of the bloodiest war this country has ever seen. They fought for your freedom, and it's not enough. You still demand that you want reparations and you want everything else 8 generations later.
Because when you fought for our freedom, that's like asking a father to get Father of the Year for showing up to his son's basketball game.
No, it's not. It's nothing like that.
You don't get credit for doing.
What's interesting about what that man just said that really caught my attention, he said, we decided that, y'all deserve to be treated as equals. So he identifies himself with the slave master, and he views this man as, whatever percentage of a man he views him as, because they don't view us as whole human beings. To me, I think about the Wilmington Massacre and how they ran a coup on those people's businesses when the black people in this country started to thrive. I think about, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, and the government always allows laws to be passed to, tear down what people has created. Right now, we living in times where we have a lot of finances and stuff, but we don't own anything, like anything that is a necessity. To me, banks, farms, hospitals, and stuff like that. If you get sick, you got to go to a government or a Caucasian-owned hospital. If you need a loan and you got to go to a bank, it's a few black banks probably in Atlanta, Charlotte, DC, but it's not to the masses like how the Caucasian banks is. If you need food, and even if you do go to a black farmer, they got the greenhouse where they can protect the vegetables that's growing from the pesticides and from the chemtrails that's being sprayed in the air. This is just an interesting conversation that, to me, I feel like anybody against reparations and just the conversation of reparations is just disingenuous to humanity in totality. Let's get back to it.
What you're supposed to do. You should have never enslaved us based on skin color to begin with.
I agree with that.
So then what are we having a conversation about, Beau?
Well, clearly not, because you keep interrupting me every 2 seconds. So what I will say is bloodshed happened throughout this country in order to get your freedom. Is that you aren't thankful at all for that?
What kind of freedom did we get, though? You see, when
you were no longer slaves.
Right, but what did we get land grants? Did we get back any sort of record? When we weren't slaves, I'll give you that. Were white slave owners compensated by the United States federal government for the loss of property?
Well, written in the 13th Amendment, they weren't supposed to.
Answer that question, Beau.
I am, if you would give me an opportunity to.
That requires a yes or no.
No, it
Were
doesn't.
white slave owners compensated by
yes
the
or
U.S.?
No.
Oh, yes, it is.
Can we talk about history?
That's what I'm having.
Dude,
his
shut the fuck up.
You can say you're pissed because you know what happens.
I'm not pissed. I'm annoyed that you won't let me talk.
Go ahead.
Under the 13th Amendment, it wasn't supposed to be, but yes, they were. You wouldn't even let me get to the yes before you interrupted. So yes, landowners were compensated. What's your point? Why do you deserve reparations? You're being a victim.
Not only were
you were never enslaved.
Not only were they
you were
compensated.
never enslaved. I was never a slave owner. You don't deserve reparations. You haven't even discussed that there were black slave owners that enslaved black people.
There were?
Yes. I think there was anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 black slave owners.
It was 4,000.
Like I said, 3,000 to 4,000.
Right.
And what about only 25% of the...
Listen, I hated the disrespect there when he told him, well, shut the F up. And Buddy did shut up too. He allowed him to make him stop talking. He said, you were never enslaved. You know, we are a direct reflection and a connection to the ancestors and the people who came before us. The circumstances that we're currently dealing with, you know, the generational wealth that wasn't allowed to be created, are people before us going to wars and not being able to participate in the GI Bill, getting home ownership. The destruction of communities that was allowed by the government is a direct reflection of what's going on today. And listening to these people, they don't seem to care about that. They seem to get a kick out of it. And another part of the conversation that really catches my attention that I see a lot of people, they disingenuous about, is that they always want to mention that black people own slaves. You know, the social construct that is race is just interesting because they will use that to act as if black people don't deserve reparations. But at the end of the day, all black people aren't the same because, you know, some of us, you know, I don't even like to identify as black, to be honest with you, because I know exactly what it is. And I would be a fool to identify with it because at the end of the day, what is it? What is your real lineage? What is your real nationality? Because I'm not Haitian. Those are black people. I'm not African. Those are black people. I'm not Jamaican. Those are black people. I'm not a British black person. I'm an American. You know, I have a skin tone that's brown. They can, you know, put everybody in this black thing and consider us all the same at the end of the day, and we're really not. Just like how, you know, some people will identify as white so they can be perceived that they are the dominant people, when in our reality, you might be some little dirty person from a whole nother realm. It's just a weird conversation. I want to hear what he got to say about blacks owning slaves, though, because I cut him off.
The Confederate South owned slaves.
I don't.
So you think that all white people should be reimbursing you
No.
8 generations later?
No, I don't. Again, you keep making this about. See, the white fragile male ego is real interesting because you keep making this about white people. What I'm looking at is the government institution. I didn't mention white people once outside of looking at who was committing the act. The United States federal government codified a legal caste system based around color. Now, it just so happens that the ones that were occupying those seats happen to be Caucasian from the mountains of Caucasus. Your inability to acknowledge the fact that when this happened from one generation, compounded across 200 plus years, if you're going to say, and sit across me and say that if you repetitively restrict someone's economic ability to move, that it doesn't have a net negative lasting impact that can impact generations.
You've had the economic ability to move for the last 100 years almost. And
After
and
having
guess who's
combat redlining?
outperformed you? Asians, Hispanics, Indians, people from the Middle East have outperformed you over and over again.
Why is that? Why is that, Beau?
Probably because they came here and they're not victimizing their slavery,
Or maybe
and
because
holding
they-
it over everybody's head. Maybe it's because they stood on their boots and they made a life for themselves.
And they were also
here-
able to label themselves as immigrants to receive assistance from the United States federal government off the backs of the work that black people have been doing to gain their own equivalent.
And you guys have too these last 15 years with DEI and everything else that they've
Are
rolled
you
out.
really going to sit here and repeat that? 15
I
years
am.
versus
Yeah.
250. How insane can you be?
Why are you yelling? Why are you so upset right now?
For the same reason you wanted me to shut the fuck up, because I'm not. And see, I'm not upset. I'm just holding
You are upset.
to a standard that you want to run from.
No,
15
I've
years.
asked you multiple times why you deserve reparations. You haven't been able to
answered
tell
it.
me. You basically
I answered
said
it.
that because you are the 8th generation removed from slavery, you deserve it. And I got a question for you. Your middle name's Julio. Are you both your parents black?
They both are black.
Both
Yes,
are black. Are they
are.
both descendants of slavery?
They are.
So in your what happens with reparations if you have one white parent and one black parent? Do they get less? How does reparations even work in a system where
you do
there's
know that white slave
can I
masters
just
raped black
finish,
people.
bro? How does reparations even work in a society where just the government is written with fraud right now? I am talking about how reparations doesn't work today. If it had happened back then, more than happy for it, but it doesn't work today. And let's have that conversation rather than go back 8 generations and continue to complain about slavery.
Well, I already told you my reparations plan wouldn't be the $250,000. Obviously, you must have skipped that part. So what my reparations plan would look like would be offering home ownership assistance, offering business lines of credit, and actually looking at creating a reparations task force to analyze the current net negative economic impact.
But they're already doing business lines of credit. For example, in LA, if you're a small business owner, you get the ability to get small business loans over white Americans.
Based on what data metric? What source do you have for that information?
I could talk to, there was a woman that came into my bar that literally told me this. She's with the SBA loan offices in downtown Los Angeles.
So once again, let me restate this. Median white household wealth is approximately 6 to 10 times that of black households, and that varies by the data set or the year. Home ownership gap remains at 30 percentage points between white Americans and black Americans. This is directly due to redlining policies that I hate to give her credit, but Jasmine Crockett brought this up. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has brought this up. There are still economic vestiges of racist originated policies or racially originated policies that exclude black people from home ownership.
They also excluded immigrants as well. You act like other people did not go through this.
What I'm saying is that
But why were they able to do better and you guys weren't?
once again,
crazy.
So
reason,
again, home ownership is up amongst white Americans because we're the majority.
then that would mean that that's not really a valid data point, because when you look at per capita home ownership.
So this is per capita that what you're repeating. To me.
no, what I'm looking at is nationally, but you're saying
So,
that,
so
of course, there would
nationally,
be-
if we have 60% of the population, we would have more home ownership.
Right,
So
which means it's a moot
you should
point
be
to bring
pulling
up.
from a per capita and not a nationally poll, right?
the reason I'm pulling from a national poll is because who controlled this nation for a longer period of time, white or black Americans?
I would say white Americans, yes.
Okay, so if white Americans controlled this country for a longer period of time, it would stand to reason that they could enact policies that could enable them to maintain their economic stronghold while systematically subjugating the economic ability to move for black Americans. Again, black people are the only race in this country, the only class of people in this country that were deliberately stigmatized based on color. Did that or did that not
That's
happen?
not true.
Who else in this country was stigmatized purely based on
You
color?
don't think other people don't experience racism?
You're not answering my
No,
question.
I am. I'm asking you a question.
Now you're the one yelling.
No, it's because you're talking over me.
Not really.
Yeah, bro.
I do have the approval rates on the SBA stuff if you guys want it.
Yeah.
Black applicants 35% approval rate, white applicants 64% approval rate on SBA loans.
Is this
Read
Los
that one more
Angeles?
time.
This is national.
Read that one more time,
Can you do
Sean.
Los Angeles?
Yeah.
No. Go national first.
He
then go
read
Los
it.
Angeles.
We don't need to hear it again.
So
Los Angeles.
64% versus 35. So more than
And
more
can
than
you do me a
twice.
favor? Can you
Yeah.
narrow that down to the last 10 years, or can you narrow it down to like
For
the last
LA
year
or for
two?
national?
For LA.
Mind you, you want to narrow it down to the last 10 years because it makes your argument look
No,
slightly better when I'm looking at the national.
It's because
the
you're
national
okay with
data.
racial discrimination as long as it's not happening against you.
No, I'm not. I never said I was okay with racial
Well,
discrimination.
then why are you sitting here refuting my argument? Why can't we get down to the bottom to
I
it?
said we can. But
Okay,
with
let's
the
get down to the
national,
bottom. Do you admit that DEI policies have advantages towards black and minority groups?
Black
than-
people only made up 3% of DEI hires.
That's
I said
actually
this on
wrong.
Jubilee.
So I looked that up.
Okay, sure.
Black Americans only made 3% of DEI hires within the DEI framework.
Which is what I was talking
No. What I'm saying is DEI, Black Americans only made 3% of DEI hires in diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. They made up more hires when they were actually implemented into business practices and governments.
Based on what data source?
Let's use the Fortune 500 only hired 6% of white applicants in 2021, with 60% of the nation being white applicants. That doesn't make sense. That obviously gave an advantage.
You know what this conversation, like listening to this conversation and hear him talk about advantages and percentages and people getting opportunity. Um, you know, it's something that I have been talking about for a long time on my channel about unifying as a race. And if y'all can't tell me how my mic sound in the comment section, I would greatly appreciate it. Uh, Unification is powerful, and staying on code is powerful for the black race to me, because listening to him speak, it's no way in hell that they're going to give the government, that is, not white people, because I don't look at, a specific race of people as powerful. I look at the people who is in power, that's running the government, as the people that is making the decisions. So they are never going to, give an advantage or see an advantage. When they talk about DEI hires and stuff like that, why not want to put people in position who never had the opportunity? Why not give people certain loans and stuff so they can have a chance to be able to get ahead? The advantage piece, listening to this Caucasian male speak, the government is never going to allow, unless a war goes on, or unless, we can come together and unify in ways that can hinder the financial structure of this country to move forward. If that ain't gonna happen, then nothing is gonna change, because they're not gonna allow any type of advantages for black people to pursue and to evolve and to grow. That's not what they want. They want to keep us where we at, or keep us down, or create systems and structures to keep us level, so we can never, surpass them in the financial aspect. I want to know your thoughts about that in the comment section too. Let's get to it.
To Black Americans and minorities.
This is why we need fact checks, because every objective,
Look it up. You can look it up on your phone.
Every measurable statistical data point that we have as of 2025 indicates that Black Americans, male or female, made up 3% of all DEI hires across this country. What you're saying
that's not
now,
true.
Okay.
Because
I'll look it up.
so where are you getting that from?
The US
So what
Department of
percentage
Labor
of black
statistics.
hires were DEI you want me to look up?
What you can look up for, what year did you just use? What year did you use? You said
No. So let's go back to what you had just said. You said Black Americans only made up 3% of all DEI hires.
Right.
I'll look that up.
But it's actually 3% of DEI within the DEI framework. So people that had, for example, a DEI program in their business, only 3% of Black Americans were hired for those programs.
And while we're at it, remind me what DEI exists for to begin with. Why does DEI exist to begin with?
Honestly, it's a racial component to try to disadvantage the white people and give advantages to minorities. So
Disadvantaged white people
Yeah.
when they've had an advantage in this country for how many years?
So it's okay to disadvantage a group.
No.
That's what you're saying.
So what that is an
actually
equity
what you're
balancing act.
what you're saying is okay to disadvantage a group because they've had an advantage for so many years.
That's
Which would be better if we gave everybody opportunity.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're confused. I get it.
I'm not confused at all. I'm
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
gonna.
you
I'm gonna-
are.
I'm gonna force you to admit how fucking stupid you sound. So white people in this country have dominated the socioeconomic, economic, and political power structure for 244 years. A economic corrective action like DEI is only meant to attempt to balance economic
Why do you
opportunity.
think? Why do you
Can
think?
you admit-
Why do you think we've had control for the last 250 years? Because we've been a majority.
Because
what do you
you
think
stole
happened?
this land,
What do you-
subjugated it from the Indians.
And this is what I'm talking
and
about. You're a cultural Marxist. We
No.
stole this land. No, we conquered it. That's way different.
It's the same shit.
It is not.
You discovered some shit that was already here that people were
No,
already
nobody
living
had
on. You
control
killed
of
the
the
Indians
full
and
Americas ever. They were Indian nations fighting over each other. We didn't steal land. We conquered it. Way different.
I heard that a lot in the black community, and I want to, disagree with this brother on something that he says. And I want to know y'all perspective on this also, because it's important. We like to use the word stole, or they took ideas or whatever, things like that from us, or stole land and stuff. They did conquer and take things. We just don't want to use that type of terminology because it sounds harsh. And when you realize that your ancestors and people took things and stole things and died about it, they ain't gonna give it up without a fight. We want them to give. That's the key word, give reparations. Nothing is gonna be gave without a fight, without some sort of unification coming together to be able to obtain the things that we want. If we out here, man, I was just looking at some videos of Memphis street gangs and stuff and seeing how we hate our own. And I understand how that was created, but if the unification piece could never happen, you heard what this guy said. We didn't steal nothing. Stealing means sneaking to obtain it. Taking it, going to war about it, that means we didn't care. We just did what we wanted to do. And he is defending that aspect of the government system and the Caucasian race. It's just interesting.
And you should owe a lot of thanks to people that colonized this land. In fact, you should owe a lot of thanks to people that are white. You're wearing a suit that was invented by a white guy, typing from a phone that used the internet, invented by a white guy, a phone that was invented by a white guy. You benefit from whiteness. So I'm really sick and tired of this argument that, colonize this, colonizer that.
If you go, I'm light skinned, Beau. So if you go far
What does
back
that
enough,
mean?
if you go back far enough in my genealogy, I have white in me as well as black. The point I'm making to you is, one, Columbus discovered some shit that Native Americans were already living on. They killed the Indians, conquered the land. They still stole it. Not only did you steal the land, you then bring over slaves because you're too lazy to do your own damn work, build your own White House. You have my people build it. Then you subjugate us and treat us as property for 244 years.
Do you
when
think
we attempt to make
Americans
corrective action, let me finish. When economic action is attempted to be installed to correct a severely, ridiculously high economic advantage that people with your skin tone have had for 244 years, now, oh my God, the white people are under attack. No, that's the fragile white fucking ego. That's all it is.
This is why I also think you're racist.
No, I'm honest.
Yeah, you are.
I'm honest.
You're extremely racist.
How?
Because you obviously hate white people.
I don't.
You're sitting here
I have white
complaining
people
about
in my
250
family, Beau.
years of subjugation. Doesn't mean you don't have any sort of biased or prejudiced against them.
Is telling the truth biased?
No, it's not.
Okay, then. So how am I being racist?
Well, you're mad about 250 years of subjugation, and you're willing to sacrifice equality and merit for the betterment of your people over others.
Never said that, Beau. Never
No,
said that.
you're
Let me ask you a question.
exemplifying
If somebody, your great-great-great-great-grandmother, and then continued to do that to her grandchildren, didn't even claim the kids that they had with your grandmother, then could kill someone that looked like you just because you were black, just because you were the wrong color, that would piss you off a little bit?
Do you not think that's happening in this country right now?
Can you
where
answer
they're
that
just
question
killing
first?
Irina Zarutska?
Can you? That has nothing to do with what
I'll be honest.
asked
I
you.
wouldn't know if my great grandmother got. And to be honest, her being years ago, I wouldn't be complaining about it 8 generations later.
What about the fact that when the white American government assassinates a civil rights leader for simply saying all we say to America is be true to what you're saying on paper?
That's wrong.
Okay, then. So
Okay.
if you know that that's wrong, and that happened one instance times more than 40,000, and that's just documented. Would you not be pissed at that? When the nation that your ancestors helped to build wouldn't even give you a fucking birth certificate, you wouldn't be pissed at that?
You got a birth certificate, didn't you?
I didn't. We're not talking about me. I'm talking.
Did your
about
dad
what
not
you're
get a
doing-
birth? Did your
what
dad
you're-
not get a birth certificate?
No,
No,
you're doing,
I wouldn't be-
you are
you
not
know-
looking
you know
at the
what's funny,
ontological
dude?
origin of the problem.
That's not
if
true.
you can't do that, if you cannot answer a question
You sound
honestly,
like a 50-year-old man that's mad at his dad for something.
no, my
Yes.
dad is my hero. I would never be pissed at him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm using an example. If you can't understand the example, I can't help understand it for you. You sound like somebody that's mad about your dad as a 50-year-old. Like, oh, my dad was a mean guy. You're mad about slavery from 250 years ago. This is ridiculous.
So
I want to stop him for a minute, and I'm about to get into the Nolan Wells conversation after this. I'm going to play a few more minutes of this, though. But, when you're dealing with problems in certain situations in life, it could be health, it could be racial, it could be financial, spiritual, your belief system. All problems, you have to start back to the root of the problem. And if you can't start at the root and acknowledge that you was a part of the problem or you contributed to the problem, you'll never fix the problem because you always trying to blame something or trying to make an excuse for your actions. And that's what this Caucasian man is doing. I can guarantee if you go on his platform, he might be talking about he got black fatigue or those people doing this type of stuff over here and they're doing this type of stuff over there. But if you look at the root of the problem, the financial uncertainty that some people are living with and dealing with is the reason why those actions and the things that they're doing is like that because they living with uncertainty. Why are they living with uncertainty? Because of the government structure and the bills that was passed, the hindrance from slavery, the remnants of that is still in play today and having an impact on our diets, our health, people dying early and all type of stuff. It's just a sad situation, but it's an interesting situation to see the perception of the Caucasian male and how they feel about it.
Here's a
What
question.
you're a victim is what I'm saying.
So are you going to say, if I'm a victim, okay, first of all, let's go. What about me is a victim, Beau?
You wanting reparations, and you've never experienced slavery, you've never experienced segregation.
I've experienced
In fact,
racism.
Can you give me an example of you experiencing racism?
Well, sure. When I was 17 years old, I was in the American Legion puts on an oratorical contest every year, and I know for a fact I was the best speaker. And for the 2 years that I tried it, I made it to the semifinals. And the reason that I lost was because they said that they didn't give a reason. I came in second place to a white woman purely because she was white.
How do you know that?
Because I asked the judges for the scorecards and we had the same score. I'm sorry, I take that back. I was actually ahead of her by 1 point, and they gave it to her because they said my speech was not long enough. The length of my speech was long enough, which was a lie. It was 2 seconds over the needed time limit. So that's a direct example of racism. And in fact, what is so interesting is I know it was racist because some of the people that put it on.
That's wrong, and I'm sorry you went through that. That doesn't mean you deserve reparations. It doesn't mean every Black American deserves reparations from something that happened over 100 years ago or 250 years ago.
Right. So how would you feel if it happened to your people?
It's happening right now, actually.
How?
I've already laid it out.
No,
to
you didn't. You didn't lay out
policies
shit.
is
All you said was that
you're so
DEI
angry.
I'm not angry.
You keep insulting me.
I'm not insulting you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying that
you
you didn't lay
are.
out shit. You did not present an argument that proved that white people, white males in particular, are under stress. Let me tell you something. If you're a white man in America and you are suffering or you're poor, that is your misuse of your privilege.
Same if you're a Black American.
How? That's impossible. If that's true.
See, this is why you're a victim. You think people are still holding you back, and you're
No, I
free
don't.
American.
No, I don't
In fact,
think people
I
are
think
holding
you're
you
doing
back.
pretty good. You wear a suit. You came here from Atlanta, Georgia on a flight. You're probably going somewhere else in a day or two. In fact, I think the day I saw you at Jubilee, you weren't just flying here. Then you were flying to San Francisco to meet up with your girlfriend and then flying back to Atlanta. Seems like you're doing.
You know what he fails to realize is that, Black people that speaks about reparations isn't speaking from an individualist mindset. We like doing good and certain individuals like succeeding, but we see the remnants of what was caused from slavery and what was caused from just beyond slavery, the financial destroying of our communities and our institutions that was created. And we want to see all, but he is speaking to this man specifically about you flew in, you had your girlfriend and all of that with you. It's really, the reparations conversation isn't about that. It's about, American Black people in totality, what is needed and what is actually deserved. And it's not going to be given listening to what he's talking about from, just previous history and stuff. They feel like they conquered this country and that's the reason why they deserve to be in the position that they is in now, to make the decisions on anybody and everybody that comes into this country. So it's going to have to take some sort of unification. Let them continue on.
Doing pretty well. So why are you so upset about things that happened 250 years ago? You're playing a victim is what I'm saying.
That's called working twice as hard to get half of what you deserve. That's all that
No,
is.
you're not. You're not working twice as hard as anybody. You look like you have a pretty cool life.
The reality, you have no idea.
Maybe you should learn to accept yourself.
I accept myself great, and that's part of accepting yourself, Beau, is being able to tell the truth. This is where I'm saying that what the
tell
reality.
me when I've lied.
Well, you just said that white males are being currently oppressed, which is an
Yes,
outright
they
lie.
are.
If that's true, Beau, then here's a simple question: isn't power an escape tool from oppression?
What is
Who
DEI?
dominates?
What is DEI?
Diversity, equity, and
And what does
inclusion.
DEI do?
It is designed to, well, its intent is to mitigate the socioeconomic, economic, and political lack of power that Black Americans
And what does
have in
that
this
do?
country. it attempts to restore economic balance. I don't know how
No.
many
What does it
different
do
times
to
I can-
white people? It basically excludes them from hiring events and advantages in their own business or job.
If that's true, then let's run the numbers. If what you're saying is true, so in 2026, who currently is more employed between Black Americans and white Americans, male and female? Looking
This
at
is
the last
such a
12
dumb
years.
point because you're asking ChatGPT when the population of white Americans is more than Black Americans.
Right.
In fact,
In order to have power, you have to have more of a population than your opponents. clearly.
correct. In
Right.
fact, I
So
would not
white
even
people
say
have
it's
that.
white privilege; it's majority privilege.
Right. So
So then why don't we call it that instead of
Beautiful.
white privilege?
So overall, white Americans are more likely to be employed than Black Americans, and this has been consistently true for decades, including the last 12 years.
Okay.
But when you split by gender, it becomes a little bit more nuanced. White men have significantly higher employment rates than Black men. Going from 2023 survey, Bureau of Labor Statistics, 67.9% of white men were employed, 65% of Black men were employed, but the long-term gap states that there has always been historically at least a 5 to 10 percentage point drop between Black males and white males. Black women are often this is where we actually have some small advantage. Black women are often as employed or more than white women, with 60.1% for Black women, 55.9% for white women. Right now, Black Americans are 2 times as likely to be unemployed as white Americans. So the DEI bullshit you're spewing is not actually true based on the data.
It is. Because
Black
it's actually,
Americans are about 2 times.
you can
as
read
likely
from
to be
ChatGPT
unemployed
all
as
you
white
want.
Americans.
ChatGPT,
And the source on that is the Economic Policy Institute.
ChatGPT is a racist.
The source on that is the
AI
Economic
chat.
Policy Institute.
Great.
Is the Economic Policy
Great.
Institute
I'm
racist?
glad you were able to do that. Now, look up the article in 2021 when 6% of white Americans were or white applicants were accepted and hired by Fortune 500 companies.
I looked at.
So
are you going to say, Beau, that the Economic Policy Institute is lying?
No, I didn't say that. Did I?
So right, you didn't. So why are you now wanting to confine the story to study to 2021 when I gave you a wider range to prove my point?
You
Why are
actually
now wanting
didn't
to
prove your
confine it?
point. There's plenty of facts out there and plenty of stories and allegories coming from writers' rooms in LA where they became more diverse and they stopped hiring white people. They stopped hiring white people for white jobs. In fact, you can't get hired at Netflix as a white man. They ask you if you're gay, Black, whatever, pansexual in order to get hired there. So don't sit here and say that it's not happening. And when I asked you what DEI was, you completely avoided the fact that it holds back white people on purpose.
hold
Why did you
back white
avoid that?
I didn't.
It
avoid
did.
I stated that
if
what
it gives,
I said what its intent.
listen,
is
this is easy logic. If it gives an advantage to other people like minorities, then it's holding back another group. Is that not true? How is that not true? That's a simple logical point.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Because
there's a program designed to give minorities a benefit, how does that not hold back another group that is just considered white?
You just refuted yourself with the key word minority. There is no way in the world that you can say that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which are designed to mitigate and combat DEI exists because economic imbalance exists.
No, it exists because, and this is going back to you being a cultural Marxist. It exists because we live in a system.
Next.
It exists because we live in a system right now that's.
I took notes just for this part. White women benefited the most from DEI. That's a statistical fact because, they make up a much larger portion of the U.S. workforce than minority women. The larger the number and the sex prioritization, white women, they benefited more than any Black person in, getting that access to those certain jobs that they might not even qualify for. The single largest group of beneficiaries of equal employment opportunity and affirmative action policies, largely because gender-based protections apply to a large segment of the workforce. That was what I wrote down in my notes earlier today. The gender-based protection applied to a large segment of the workforce. That's what, I just don't understand this talking point. They can remove that because them being the owners of certain companies and stuff, they still can prioritize their own. But without that policy in place, they can hinder the people that it was meant for to help.
Pushing towards Marxism more than anything, and it's taught through the institutions.
Pushing towards Marxism. Who's in the White House right now? A Marxist or a Republican? That I voted for.
Bro, that's a bad example.
What's a bad example?
What you just stated is a horrible example.
How?
Because it doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't mean the system isn't corrupt and wrought full of communist Marxists. In fact, we were sitting across from 2 communists just a month ago. So don't sit here and tell me it's not happening.
Was Zena or Mason?
Zena's a communist, a proud communist.
She is, but do Zena or Mason hold political power right now?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
talking about power. I'm talking about real power.
This is the problem. Is power doesn't matter because what is growing is dude. Power is, how should I say this? So,
what is power? Define power.
Power is who has control, and not necessarily control, but if we were to define power, power would be the person in the human experience is the power is who has control over someone else, right?
You know, y'all can watch that on your own time. I will put a link to that in the comment section. I'm going to give my take on this debate because he smoked him just now when he said power doesn't matter. You know, power is the single thing that matters the most about who controls the country, who controls the finances, who makes the decisions on how people live and how people don't live. He smoked them right there. But in closing to that conversation before we move along, I want to say that, you know, we got to keep the reparations conversation alive because it's necessary. It's just really necessary. A lot of people disagree with it. A lot of people done gave up on it since the Trump administration been in office and they've been doing the things that they've been doing. But, you know, I'm going to continue on for the rest of my life until I see it, even if I don't see it in my lifetime. I'm just going to keep the conversation alive because it's just a necessary conversation. And to be honest with you, when I think about reparations, I think about American blacks. You know, I don't think that blacks from other nationalities and other countries deserve reparations. I think about American black people, the civil rights era, the people that's indigenous to this land. That's just my take. I've been wanting to talk about this Nolan Wells catastrophe for a while now. Officer Brandon Tatum has talked to a lot of the young boys that was contributors to this sad situation. You know, his best friend in this clip said he wasn't going to attend his funeral. You know, I can see that they are on code, the people who contributed to this. Those guys that Nolan Wells thought was his friends, they are on code. And by them being on code, it's going to be a challenging situation to see what really happened during the time when, however he passed away, however it happened. Will we ever know the truth? You know, America likes a good story, something that everybody can have a perception about. I'm going to play this. This was Nolan Wells' best friend. He had a conversation on TMZ, but now he's here with Brandon Tatum. You know, Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, or whatever you perceive him to be. I had talked about him a multitude of times on my channel, certain things that he said. A lot of people view him as a coon or whatever. He came up with Candace Owens when they created the Blexit, the blacks exiting the Democratic Party. But now he's talking to this young man who was Nolan's best friend. And I just want to hear what he got to say. Let's get to it.
Have anything to do with Nolan's death?
No.
Do you have personal knowledge of someone directly in your friend group having anything to do with Nolan's death?
No, not at all.
So I saw you on television, you had an interview, and I felt like you laid out a few things that I think the world needs to know and be clear about.
Okay.
And the first one is the relationship that you had with Nolan. Can you explain your relationship with Nolan?
Yeah, I will. So his mom got on TV, as everybody has seen, and said that she didn't know me. And man, that can't be farthest from the truth. Me and Nolan, I met Nolan in 9th grade in a second block class. It was math. He was one of the first guys I made friends with. it was somebody I made a connection to. Like Offscript, he was an athlete. I could tell he was an athlete when I walked into class. We sat really close to each other, and all he did, he turned around and asked me for a pencil when I first met him in 9th grade when I moved to Ocean Springs. Man, it was tough, and the relationship there has always been a best friend in my eyes. I never wanted to take away how close somebody else was with Nolan, but Nolan was my best friend. That was a guy I knew I could call at any point in time. He called me at 11 o'clock on the 4th to see where I was parked at. Man, me and Nolan have countless nights of him giving me advice on my girlfriend, on my life in general. Nolan has been the only friend, and I love my friends and my best friends in this group of guys, but Nolan has been the only person that ever tell me like he's proud of what I've done.
I'm going to stop him right there. You know, my mom is my best friend. My wife is my best friend also. If the mom came on television and said she don't know who this boy is, you are not Nolan's best friend, dog. If you ain't sat down and he ain't showed you to the people who he's closest to, y'all ain't broke bread and ate dinner with the family, this is all your point of view. That's not a fact. You got to break bread and deal with consequences and circumstances and uncertainty together to put that title of best friend on somebody else. Now, I understand he's young and I didn't know the definition of a best friend when I was probably both of their ages because I hadn't never been through nothing. When you go through stuff and the people that you perceive to be your best friend aren't there, then you realize that, it's a different situation. But if Nolan mom said she didn't know him, let me play the video.
He's proud of how hard I worked. He's proud of me going overseas to go play ball. That was my guy. Like, that was my best friend.
Yeah, and so how does it make you feel when the media activists are coming out and alluding to the fact that you may have something to do with what happened to Nolan on that day?
Man, that hurts. It hurts is an understatement. I beat myself up every night I lay down. Beat myself up anytime it crosses my mind. Because in my head, if I wasn't drinking, if I didn't get into that altercation, maybe I would be able to do something. Maybe I would have saw something. Maybe I would have told Nolan, hey, man, you're not going with that girl. Just come back with us. We're going back a little bit later. We can go meet up with the guys later. Maybe it just plays out different. And then the fact that they're going to play that is I'm already trying to mourn my friend's death as is, and I'm blaming myself for it. To put that in my head is a next level of hurt that can't be truly explained. Because it's hard to put into words. Generally, it's backstabbing from a sense of a community that I thought I had with my skin color, and they stay so strong together. And I'm supposed to be one of them, but I come up and I speak, and now I'm the person to blame. Now I'm not dark enough for them. I'm not black enough for them, and now I'm the issue. It doesn't make sense. In my head, it doesn't make sense.
Was Nolan? I mean, obviously you were in the friend group, but the way the media makes it seem is that almost as if Nolan was the only black person in this whole friend group. Now they don't even mention you. They don't bring you up in this whole thing when it comes to what happened on at Horn Island. So what's your take on Nolan being presented as like the only black kid in a group of all these white boys?
I gotta stop him. This is starting off too emotional, but I want to hear this like them saying Nolan was the only person that was black in a group of white boys. Officer Tatum is a lame ass nigga. Like I would take your video off of my show if you before you give me a copyright strike. But a lot of things that he be doing is lame as hell. This is a young boy, and he's obviously manipulating this conversation. The young boy said that it hurts the perception of him, that he's not black enough and all of this whole type of stuff. You know, it comes to a point in your life where you got to stop living out of feelings and emotions. Black isn't a reality. To be honest with you, I just talked about it when we was talking about the reparations debate. Black isn't a reality. It's a social construct created to keep the division going. It's not real. So people got to stop viewing that as something of substance. White isn't real also. So just like Officer Tatum appeasing himself to the crackers, that it's not a reality. At the end of the day, you got to value yourself and view yourself as something of value and know the limitations and the things that you are involving yourself in and the people who you are involving yourself with. And parents got to teach their kids that also. Let me let them cook.
That's crazy, man. I know we've spoken a little bit, but that friend group that I'm a part of to this day was the first friend group I was in when I moved to Ocean Springs as a new kid coming in. I never knew any of them. I'd known one, kind of, sort of, back from grade school because we went to the same private school together. But that was it. And him being the only black person, minority, any of that measure is insane. Our friend group is diverse from the max. Like, we have a mixed guy. I mean, we had Nolan in our friend group. There's an Asian a part of our friend group. There's a Latino that they're trying to perceive as white. He's truly authentic Mexican. His parents are from Mexico. They came over legally and they did everything right, and he's been here since. It blows my mind because our friend group is not a friend group that sees race. Our friend group sees what good you do for other people, what good you bring, and how the type of person you truly are and where your morals lie. That's one thing in common. Me and my friends might not agree on everything, but our morals align. Our morals know. So for them to even make that narrative up really shows you have no idea what it's like down here on the coast. You have no idea.
I'm going to make this quick, though, but what's interesting about this is that he said our friend group is diverse. I'm 46 years old. I just want to speak for a moment. I'm going to make it quick, like I said. At the age that they was, high schoolers, you don't know who your friends are until later on down the line in life when you need those people, when you need assistance in life. Right now, everything is fun, and y'all having a good time. Y'all in high school. Y'all don't have no responsibilities and things like that. You know, people be calling folks friends, and I hope somebody young is watching this. You be calling folks and individuals your friend, and you don't know what to expect from these people later on down in life when life is hard.
Idea how tight-knit Ocean Springs as a community is. You don't understand it. You don't see the thousands of kids in the high school football stands cheering their team on. Nobody cares what color you are. We're there to have fun and to just live. And that's how Nolan lived. That's how I live now. I've grown up and I have more big boy stuff, but in high school, all I cared about was going to hang out with my guys. And I mean, on a personal level that leads off of it, is like, it got me in trouble with my girlfriend just because I wanted to be with the guys. I never once thought, man, they look at me different. Man, I'm kind of an outcast to them. No. All their moms have always welcomed me with open arms. Anytime I needed anything, I knew I could call them and their parents, and they would do anything in the world for me. So with Crump pushing this narrative, it's wrong.
Yeah,
It's completely wrong, especially about our friend group.
Yeah, I find it, especially after talking to you, meeting some of the guys, that it seems like there was an agenda. But can you walk us through just your perspective from that day? I don't know if did you go with them initially? Were you a part of the
So
group that went? to Horn Island?
So yeah, so I wasn't no clear that up. No, I was not on the boat with them. Yes, I was a part of the group that was supposed to go out. So the only reason why I did not go on the boat is I was offered, I got begged to go, but my uncle, we also took 12 people out on our boat, not including us two, so 14. And my uncle knows the passengers wouldn't have helped. Generally wouldn't have helped with anything. With that many people on a boat, you need a little bit of help. So my uncle was like, hey, can you just ride out with me and you can go do your thing throughout the day on the island? I don't care. I don't need you. I just need help to get out there and then pick everything up. Because I know all these people are going to be drunk and they're not going to want to do the extras that nobody sees about going out on the boat, right? And so I told Wyatt that, and oops, my bad. But I told him,
It's good.
I told him that, and I told him everything, which was go to plan. We were leaving a little bit earlier than them. I was gonna try to have a spot saved out, and Nolan calls me at 11 o'clock. I missed his phone call. Called me twice. I missed both of them. I saw Wyatt and Nolan on the boat. They pulled right in front of our boat, and they were screaming. I turned my head and I was like, yo, there's a spot over there, where they end up anchoring out. I helped them set their stern anchor. From the time they showed up until now, going back to it, 20 minutes before they left, I was with them. That's who I was with. I spent all day with them, minus the morning time before they got out there. But from the time they got out there to the time they went back in, I was with them. Those are my friends, man. Those are my guys.
Yeah, I want to get a few more details.
I'm sorry about that.
I know that. Yeah, go ahead. I know that you were all over the news because there was a perceived fight. Can you clarify this? When I saw the video that they put out on the internet claiming that Nolan was saying, "Give me my effing phone back," Nolan's coach came out and said immediately he knew it wasn't Nolan's voice. And obviously it wasn't Nolan's voice because you were the one that was
me yelling, yeah.
in there yelling. You got into an altercation with somebody. What happened after that? Like, put me in your place where the fight is over, whatever happened. Nolan is somewhere, you're somewhere, you're hanging out. And when was the last time that you saw Nolan before you left Horn Island?
So after the fight, I didn't stay on Horror Island much longer. So I was really upset. So with you hearing me yelling, my uncle had told me to get on the boat and wouldn't let me back off the boat. Obviously, I was really mad and I wanted to fight, wanted to get up. What wasn't smart, man. Mm-hmm. And so I was on the boat, I'm yelling, and shortly after that, I left the island. I left probably 30 to 45 minutes after I got into a fight. We started to pack up and left because I was so upset. As Javon mentions, that they were ready to get me back to land because I was really mad. I was genuinely really mad. But the last time I saw Nolan, I was walking to the boat. This was before the fight. It's me and my old lady. We had just got out of a group of people. Nolan was walking towards Wyatt's boat. I was walking in the opposite direction towards my boat. And I dabbed Nolan up. I made a slick comment about something, actually about the girl that he was with. I made a slick comment to him, us joking around, and I kept going. And not even 10 minutes after that is when I got into a fight. The last thing I told Nolan was, all right, buddy, I love you. See you later. And I'm glad I said it. I had been under the influence a little bit, and that's probably why I did say it at the time, just, getting all lovey-dovey, but I'm at peace. I said it. I'm glad.
It's a lot that's being hidden in these conversations that Officer Tatum is having with these individuals because, listening to these young boys speak, they speak on the parts that they can resonate with and they can speak clearly about, but they're not really going in depth of why. Why did you feel this way? What caused you to argue and stuff like that? He is giving them questions, but he's not challenging them to go in depth with what the questions are. He's just letting them be, and it's kind of he's making it seem a little too easy. Let me let them continue on though.
Had I said it, that was my last encounter with Nolan. Just telling him I love him.
Did you have any? So you leave the island. Did you have any encounters or association with these phones, with the keys? Did you have any connection to any of that?
I did not. So what I know, Warren started. I got my first phone call from Warren at about 9:20. I didn't answer it. I was asleep. I'd been on the boat all day. I didn't feel like going to party anymore. I went to bed. So I got my first phone call about 9:20, and I didn't wake up again until a little after 11 o'clock. And that was to my brother coming in the room being like, hey, Warren's trying to get a hold of you. You need to answer the phone. They're looking for Nolan. And I'm half awake, and I pick up the phone. And by this time, nobody had came to the house to grab anything. And Warren gets on the phone, and he's just like, hey, man, he was like, hey, have you talked to Nolan? Anything else? I was like, no, I haven't talked to him, man. He was with that girl last time I knew. And he was like, okay. He was like, man, we can't get a hold of him. We don't know where he's at. And I was like, man, it's Nolan. He's probably just out somewhere with that girl. Like, get a hold of the girl, you'll probably find Nolan. It's no big deal. And he was like, all right. He was like, but we're starting to freak out. We're getting on the phone with Coast Guard. I was like, okay. And at that time, he had already talked to his mom, Nolan's mom. And he was getting on the phone with the Coast Guard. And I'd called. I need to be specific about this. I did not call Warren's phone. I called another one of our buddies' phone, and it was on speakerphone. They were all together. I was talking on my other buddy's phone, talking to Warren. He was dialing Coast Guard because he hung up the phone and was like, hey, this is them, bye, and hung up the phone. And that was the last time I talked to him until the next morning when we all decided, when I woke up about 7 o'clock that morning, we had all decided that we were going to go out on the boat and go look for Nolan. Wyatt had already had his boat still in the water. We took that boat out. It was
What day are we talking?
That's Sunday morning.
Sunday morning on the 5th. The 5th?
So it was Saturday the 4th was the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th was Sunday. We were on the water from 9:45 to 11:50, 12 o'clock era, about lunchtime. Mm. While we were on the water, we talked to a rescue guy, and he told us to get off the water and said that they kind of had the island and the water under control. That's the professionals, man.
Yeah.
They told us to get on social media and find out any information we can. And by that time, we had already talked to a good amount of people out there. So it just made sense. So we went back in and we concluded our search and started the search off socials and started sharing everything we could and try to get a hold of anybody that could have talked to Nolan, that Nolan possibly would have reached out to. And that led into the night. It led all night long. I didn't sleep at all Sunday. Monday, I was up at 5 a.m. I was putting fuel in our boat at 6. I got told that we were taking out another boat to Chandelier at 7. So I put my boat back on the lift, and I went to McDonald's, and then I got the news.
You know, did Nolan have a boat? You know, these are children of political figures that is financially stable. Why was Nolan even around? You know, I'm starting to see why. I don't want to do this to the young brother, though, but I'm starting to see why the black folks were saying he ain't black enough. You know, he ain't articulating himself like us. He's articulating himself more like them. He has his own boat. These boys are children with boats. You know, they living the life. boats and whatever. You know, if you ain't never had a job in your life, you on a boat. That's different. Did Nolan have a boat? You know, Nolan was he left with a Caucasian female also. Was it some jealousy there? You know, that he had the ladies or whatever. He was a tall black man and the Caucasian ladies was attracted to him. You know, it's just interesting. I want to see the investigators figure this out because it seems like these young guys is on code with what they saying and they ain't letting nothing slip between the cracks. Like they deleted their social medias and stuff. They got together and figured out what was going to be said, and now they on a press run. Let me let him continue on and see what he's going to say, and then we're going to close this out, man.
After I left McDonald's, that his body was found. So it was already a plan that we were going and searching and trying to do everything we possibly can. And that's all I wanted to do. Is I wasn't there to help him out in his last minutes, but now I feel like as a friend and as one of my guys, man, I do everything in my power to help now. And that's why I have reached out to the family. I have donated to the family, and I have giving them just your normal death gifts, I would say, as you pay your respects. And
Do you think Benjamin Crump being involved in this case made it better or worse?
100,000 times % worse. Because why on the Tuesday after where has your civil rights been broken? Where has it been shown? You brought Benjamin Crump to stir up a community that's already tight-knit. Yeah, we might not be best friends with everybody, but I promise, if you're talking about Ocean Springs as a whole, Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back, 110%. We back each other. Everybody I've seen, we back each other. And for them to push this narrative and really push it, just shows me is like you have no idea who you're dealing with or who you're messing with. And I think he's taking the grieving parents and manipulating and turning this and making it sound all bad, because nothing's like that at all. No.
You know, the two videos that was played during this live, I'm going to put the links to them in the comment section below. I appreciate everybody that tunes into my show, man, that subscribe to my channel. I was looking forward to a few of you guys calling in and discussing this and tell me some of the things that caught your interest of the Nolan Wells catastrophe, some of the things about reparations that is of you guys' interest. I know my channel is a hip-hop platform, and I talk hip-hop most of the time, and I'm releasing my album and my book also. But, you know, we got to have these conversations from time to time, man, real talk. I appreciate y'all wholeheartedly, though, man. Peace, love, plenty abundance. Make sure you go get you some paper. And I'm at this thing, man, real talk.
The Trevor Jackson Podcast.